Okay, everyone, it's Dave and Paul, and this is the 18th episode of An Englishman, an Irishman, and a Load of Bollocks. And I'm not just talking to a black screen here. Paul is with us. But I gather you've had a couple of issues with your internet, Paul.
Yeah, well, it's been a running joke from literally episode one, my internet. So I'm trying that proven and tested theory of turning my camera off to see if it somewhat improves my internet. But hooray, I'm getting an upgrade in the next few days regarding our internet. So I won't know myself.
Brilliant. Okay, good stuff. Well, well, you're coming through loud and clear on the audio anyway, so that's
Okay.
that's all that matters, isn't it, really? Yeah. So I just thought I'd ask you, Paul, just to get the podcast up and running today.
Yeah.
What your thoughts are on the Wicked Witch of Scotland resigning, Nicola Sturgeon?
Yeah. Or Nick Sturgeon, maybe. Who knows?
Well, yeah. Who knows? Who knows indeed?
Yeah. Nicola Sturgeon and the good old pseudo-nationalists.
Yeah.
The SNP. When I was thinking about this, Dave, what a pathetic and moronic hill to die on, like for bloody transgenderism, when you actually think about it. But I suppose, are we surprised by the SNP? You know, in many ways, the rise and fall of the SNP. They're no different to Sinn Féin in Ireland. You know, they're pseudo-nationalists, pseudo-republicans. They're cultural Marxists. They're globalists. They're traitors, and they're not to be trusted. And they're only revealing themselves, I saw someone post a comment on an SNP Twitter account, and he called them flag shaggers. And I absolutely loved that, because that's what Sinn Féin are. When you see these people, these SNP types and the Sinn Féin types, they have every flag under the sun: the Palestinian flag, the Ukrainian flag, the trans flag, the rainbow flag, you name it, every flag, but their own bloody flag. And they wonder why they're not getting the votes in the working class areas anymore. But it's their ultimate downfall was Nicola Sturgeon was the trans bill, wasn't it? The craziness within transgenderism and in the prison service as well. And people soon woke up to it, didn't they, Dave, in Scotland, that they're fed up of this wokeness. I was reading somewhere there recently that 15,000 people stopped their membership with the SNP. 15. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can hear you, Paul. Yeah. Carry on.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just 15%. I think I was reading something like 15% support was down for the SNP, and I think 10% regarding for hunger for the independence vote was down. And then that got me thinking about the independence vote regarding the SNP. That, do you remember a few years ago, the Scottish voted against their independence? Now, I thought at the time, coming from an Irishman, that we've had to fight, blood, sweat and tears to fight for our independence. We won it eventually, 26 counties at that, through physical force. All the Scottish had to do was tick a box and you get your independence. At the time, I thought it was absurd. It was the most bizarre thing I ever saw. Maybe the Scottish who voted against independence saw what the SNP are all about. They didn't want to hand their country over to traitors who will just join the EU, to other masters, and to cultural Marxists. So, her legacy, Nicola Sturgeon, is she made Scotland the brave become Scotland the woke. And as we know, Dave, once you go woke, you go broke.
You go broke. It's true. It's so true, isn't it? And we're seeing evidence of that every day now, aren't we? Good synopsis. That, I think that's a good angle. And obviously,
what are you thinking?
Yeah, well, the Scottish independence referendum was in 2014. And I think they voted narrowly but comprehensively to remain in the union, didn't they? I think it was 54 to 46. Now, I thought it was something that really stuck out for me, was similar to the Brexit vote. Straight away, you had a clique within the Scottish National Party and their associated talking heads who demanded another referendum straight away. Now, it is definitely my view that every country has a right to its own autonomy. Absolutely, 100%. But there was a lot of deception around that, because that referendum, I think it was Alex Salmond at the time, and the SNP said this is a once in a generation vote. which is fine. That's sensible, really, isn't it? You can't be having referendums every 5 minutes. But they lost it, and straight away, as I say, similar to the Brexit saboteurs, tried to set in motion to get another referendum ASAP. But you're right, because they actually the Scottish National Party, their whole kind of like raison d'etre is for Scottish independence, and either they have taken their eye off the ball on purpose, or they've been consumed by, and I think it's more this point, utterly consumed and gripped by this complete insanity regarding, as you say, the LGBT transgender policies. They're very sinister and backward and evil policies that they're trying to set up. And one other thing I'd say as well, you said about how maybe in 2014 there were enough Scots who could see possibly the direction that the country was headed in.
Yeah, maybe they're right.
And they weren't comfortable with that. Plus, you have got a lot of unionists in Scotland anyway, who would have lended.
You do.
Yeah. What I've noticed, what I think is happening in Scotland, and it's long overdue. I noticed during the peak COVID insanity, it was much worse in Scotland. My brother lives up in Scotland, so I visited a couple of times, and he gave me regular reports of how really they were under a spell in Scotland, under Nicola Sturgeon's spell when it came to all things COVID. It was a population under deep psychosis. And I think what this has done is it's woken up enough people in Scotland. You've just given some statistics there, the 15%, which is significant, cancelling the party membership.
It is.
It's the line that's just, it's too far now, isn't it? It's too far gone, it's just too insane, too crazy. So I think that's a big positive.
And you mentioned with the SNP, I mean, obviously they're not a united party. I mean, I think they did a number on Alex Salmond. There was a bit of a witch hunt with Alex Salmond, wasn't there? And he seemed to be a good guy. I think he seemed a good leader. And then Nicola Sturgeon then, followed him. But Jacinta Ardern and Nicola Sturgeon, they're similar. They're cowards. They resigned, didn't they? They couldn't face the public. But the thing is, I'm thinking of Auckland and Wellington. Jacinta Ardern will never be able to walk those cities as a free woman. Likewise, Sturgeon in Glasgow, Inverness, Aberdeen, Edinburgh, Glasgow. There'll always be people very angry. And look, we know what will happen here. They'll lay low for a while, and we'll see them in quangos or in having a plush job in the EU, United Nations. But it won't end well. And as you say, Dave, people are fed up with this transgender insanity, tipping around these extremists, the trans lobby, the climate lobby. They all fall under the same umbrella. That for too long now, we've let extremists dictate to us and try to redefine what a bloody man and a woman is. And as I say, I think the Scottish were fed off of it. Hence the reason it was a stupid and moronic hill to die on. And I think people now, I suppose, Dave, are seeing through the transgender ideology and what they're all about. Is that they have they're insidiously targeting children, aren't they? They're targeting them in schools. They're targeting them via that creepy drag story time. Oh. And we're seeing controversies come from this. The Tavistock Centre in London, there's endless controversies coming out, and the abuses and the kids being put on beta blockers or hormone blockers, things like that. But I think we've hit peak insanity now, and the only way is down for these extremists, these trans ideologists, and the only way is up for us, And actually, just the last thing about transgenderism is that unfortunate murder in Warrington. The girl, I think her name was Brianna, the trans girl. And very sad. We don't know. I think it was 2 teenagers that did it. We don't know the ins and outs of the case, but these extremists on the left, they've jumped on it.
Weaponize
murder, to weaponize it, to suit their own, to push their own agenda. It's like the George Floyd case in America. People jumped on that to make it a race issue, BLM. In Ireland, it was the same. Aisling Murphy was murdered, and feminists jumped on it to have a go at men. These people on the left are disgusting. They have no respect for the living. They have no respect for the dead, But I think people are getting fed up. And Nicola Sturgeon and Jacinta Ardern, they're all rats off a ship, aren't they?
Yeah, I think the subject that seems to unite most people, get most people kind of like passionately engaged against what it is the trans thing, and I'll try and explain why I think that is, because we've had the COVID lies, we've had the Russia and Ukraine, and we know they're telling a lot of lies about them. In my opinion, it's the West who are desperate for World War III there.
Well, Nord Stream pipeline.
There's a Nord Stream pipeline. It's a massive story that needs investigating, and the truth out about that. If it's, you know, if there's any truth in the West are behind that. There's the obviously the climate change and the man-made climate change argument, and there's many different areas and angles of attack that I think people are aware of, but to different degrees kind of engaging with. But when it comes to this LGBT, or I should say that the trans issue, I think your average man on the street is fundamentally is aghast and is horrified by it. And there's two reasons for it. Number one is, you mentioned about what they're trying to do to children. I mean, if you indoctrinate the youth, first of all, you've captured the society. But this goes a step further. This is even more sinister than that, with what these policies would have resulted in, or have resulted in some cases. The damage being done to children who aren't ready to make these decisions about their own bodies, who might be having some confused thinking, but don't need communists telling them to go ahead, and make these changes to their bodies. And the second thing is the inverting of language and science. It's a biological fact. You are a man or a woman. You're born with male or female sex. It can't be disputed. It's insane to dispute that. And also the attack on language as well, where we who aren't part of this cult are expected to completely change the meaning of words in order to essentially to endorse somebody else's completely insane and neurotic and psychotic way of thinking. So language and science, I think that it's a fundamental attack on both, focused through the lens of transgender.
100%.
Yeah.
It's a Western disease, isn't it? Do you think in porous Peru or in porous Ethiopia, they're talking about what a man or a woman is? But I think a bit like, and I know we're going to talk about the migrant situation, the protest, is that I really do think that they kind of overcooked the frog. They boiled the frog too quickly. Yeah. They've pushed their ideologies too fast and too heavy on people. And they're getting a backlash. As I said, with Scotland Scotland have finally kind of woken up to the SNP and their hidden agendas of globalization and of Agenda 2040. And likewise with the migrant situation. And it was great to see Liverpool stand up, and Ireland is doing their thing at the moment, which is absolutely wonderful.
Ireland absolutely leading the way at the moment. I know we talked about Ireland, didn't we, Paul, for a couple of years in relation to slow to wake up to the enslavement. The enslavement as a result of the vaccine passports and all the rest of it, and the endless lockdowns in Ireland. But when it comes to this now, it appears to me, Paul, obviously you're going to be able to give me a bit more of an insight into this. It appears to me that the Irish working class and small town Ireland are starting to say, hold on a minute, now we're not putting up with this anymore. Have we reached the point in Ireland now where people are suddenly thinking, hold on a minute, our communities are starting to change beyond recognition, our values are being hijacked? And is there enough of because it's in the history of the Irish, isn't it, Paul, to rise up against the presses? So I just wanted to get a bit of a take on that from you.
It's wonderful to see, and it's I think in Ireland we're lucky in the sense, Dave, compared to your country and a lot of countries in Europe, we've been late to the game regarding illegal migration, and of our towns and cities being flooded, right? And that's led us to be observant of what's happening across the water and in Europe. So, for instance, we've seen how the Great Replacement theory has worked out in England, in Britain, in places like Luton and Rotherham, north of England. We've seen how it's working out in France. We've seen how it worked out in Germany. New Year's Eve, Cologne. We saw what happened there. German women walking around in dresses and short skirts, and the local migrants went animalistic for the night. You know, we were watching that. I think Sweden as well. Sweden was seen as the pin-up for progressive liberalism and open borders, weren't they? Everyone was saying, look at Sweden. They're going to be the hub for multiculturalism, the example. And it's failed miserably, and they regret it. And even an MEP, a Swedish MEP in Brussels yesterday or this week, came out and he said, Irish politicians, listen to the people protesting about immigration. You will regret it. So that's interesting. Let's just say it, Dave. You won't be bringing Sarah, and I won't be bringing Lisa to Malmo anytime soon for a romantic weekend, you know?
No.
But I think Irish people, Dave, predominantly working class Irish people, rural Irish people, are slowly waking up to the fact that their government, their media, and the chattering middle class, bourgeois, latte drinking types hate them and are at war with them. You know, and I think I mentioned before the idea of the Saul Alinsky rulebook of slurs and labels and isms to shut the movement down ain't working anymore. We don't care. It's water off a duck's back, all these slurs and labels and isms. And I noticed that they're whipping out, they're bringing out these race baiters in Ireland on Irish TV, people who've lived in the country a wet week or picked up a hurley and they think they're Irish, basically coming out saying, this is awful to see. I didn't know there was a far-right movement in Ireland. And Ireland, I didn't know how racist Ireland was. But I look at that in various different ways, that the more they call us far-right and racist, it's just a great recruiter. It makes us stronger. It makes us bigger. It reminds me during the Troubles, they had a guy, it reminds me of the Troubles in the north of Ireland when Ian Paisley used to be shouting in his speeches, anti-Catholic, anti-Irish rhetoric. It was the best recruiter the IRA ever had, you know, and no different to when they keep calling us far right and keep calling us racist and bring out these race baiters on Irish TV. One fella recently came out on Irish TV and he said, these protesters, they mustn't have any work. They must be all unemployed. They've nothing to be doing, you know. And I thought to myself, people are getting angry with him saying that. I was thinking, no, this is great. We need more of this guy, this race baiter. It'll only just get more people on board. So this is all they have is these labels, you know. It's desperation at this stage, you know. But I was kind of thinking, they hate us because we're not them, you know, and we never have been them. We don't dance to their tune anymore, you know. They dance to our tune now, our nationalist tune.
Yeah, brilliant, Paul. And that term far right, I mean, has there ever been a phrase that's been so abused, so hollowed out, and rendered so utterly meaningless as far right? I mean, I think it started entering the kind of like mainstream lexicon in certainly in my country, 2016 Brexit, which was also the same year of Trump's election as well. And we started to really see these flares abounding then. But the phrase is just kind of like encompassed now. It seems to become omnipresent in describing anybody who strays even one iota from the deep state establishment narrative, whether that's on. We were called, right-wing extremists for our ideas on COVID. We're called, Putin apologists. That's another stupid slayer. If you say, hold on a minute, there's two sides. But you're far right if you have concerns about immigration, if you have concerns about the European Union, if you have concerns about the Democrat Party in the US, if you have concerns about man-made climate change, is that real or not? It's just become this catch-all term, and people can now see, can't they? I mean, I can tell you from what, Paul, the far right in the UK is absolutely trivial and inconsequential. It barely exists. Honestly, it's there, but it's barely there. I think anybody who's paying attention can see, who's been paying attention, probably talking decades actually, is the threat to our way of life hasn't been from the far right. It's been from the far left. It's been and this very strange marriage between kind of like communist policy aligned and married to kind of corporate predatory capitalism, with energy companies, big pharma, big tech. But it's driven by It's driven by kind of like a concentration and transfer of wealth, concentration of power, but also a fundamental reorganization and re-education of what it is to be English, what it is to be Irish, what are our values. So we've talked about this before. So now if you treasure country, if you treasure your own people, treasure community, religion, maybe, family, small business, if you are a defender of those principles, well, you're in some way far right. You're a nutcase, you're a loon in the eyes of the mainstream media and all of their acolytes. But people can see through it now, and they've had enough.
Exactly. Far right is protecting your wonderful and beautiful children and protecting your borders. Neil Oliver said, what did he say? He said, it's a set of insults calling someone far right.
What did he say? Sorry, Paul.
He called it was the Swiss Army knife of insults is calling someone far right.
Yeah.
It's redundant now. But look, you talked about the Irish fighting back. You mentioned this quote a lot of the time. Beware the fury of patient men. Beware the fury of patient Irish men and women. Don't tread on us.
Yeah.
You mentioned about Irish history before, about uprisings. When I was thinking about Irish history in the last few hundred years, in between moments and years of subservience and oppression, every maybe 20, 30, 40 years, there's an uprising out of nowhere. And it's always a small minority who rise up and say, I've had enough of this subservience and oppression. I'm thinking of the United Irishmen, the Fenians, the IRB, the Irish Volunteers, the old IRA. You could say even the Border Campaign. You could even say in recent conflict in the late 60s, where Catholics in the north of Ireland, because of gerrymandering in places like Derry, where, that led to the Civil War, and then that led to Bloody Sunday, and that led to the creation of the provincial IRA. That you could say that was another uprising. And then obviously in the last 20, 30 years, and I think this is stemming from the recent uprising, the new revival, is Ireland has changed so drastically and so dramatically in the last 20, 30 years, Dave. Culturally, it's changed. Politically, it's changed. Socially, it's changed. Spiritually, it's changed. I mean, we celebrated bloody abortion. That tells you how Ireland has fallen.
That was depraved. That was
depraved.
I only watched that video the other day because I was watching. I think it was an interview with John Waters actually.
He's wonderful.
He mentioned that. So I went back on YouTube and just watched the 3-minute clip again, and I was just horrified all over again. I can't describe the level of depravity of not necessarily the vote, although I disagree with it, but with the way it was celebrated. I think that was symbolic of a culture that had fallen, but which is now starting to show signs of regeneration, isn't it?
Well, the working class Irish and the rural Irish folk like myself, we're fed up and we're rising and we're thinking, no, we've had enough of this last 20, 30 years. We're not taking it anymore. And hence the reason, and I think I left this kind of message in Thomas Sheridan's video when he covered this. They're like modern day versions of flying columns now, sprouting up all over the country. Little grassroots movements, East Wall, inner city, Dublin, Drimna, all over Dublin, these little working class areas. And then we can't let the dubs have all the fun. Little areas like my own town, Mullingar, is standing up, and it's grassroots. The media will say there's infiltrators coming in. No, I've seen images from Mullingar. It was all local people. Hence the reason I know Tommy Robinson is over at the moment. I think that's a distraction. I think it's interference. It's grassroots, and let's keep it grassroots.
Yeah,
communities are well able to stand up for themselves. Hence the reason in our history we've had flying columns, little communities standing up, gathering, coming together, working out. If here's a problem, here's a solution. And also I think with Tommy Robinson, your enemy's enemy is not always your friend. So we just have to be cautious. Caution is the word, I think. But it's wonderful to see the Irish fighting for their land again. It's a revival, as I said, taking our country back.
Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and it seems to be the atmosphere everywhere. I think is getting a bit febrile now, but it seems to be spreading to, what's happening. Like obviously there's that real Irish connection between Ireland and Liverpool, isn't there? But last Friday night outside the Sweets Hotel in Knowsley. Now, just a bit of context, first of all, on this. Knowsley, that area where the hotel was. So there was a hotel called the Sweet Hotel in Knowsley that's housing a lot of.
Is this the same one in Kirby? Is it?
Yeah,
Oh, no,
Kirby,
different area.
yeah.
Sorry.
And asylum seekers. Now, people have genuine concerns, first of all, regarding to the number of asylum seekers that are being apparently strategically placed around the UK. So the number of them, are they being properly vetted? Where are they coming from? How are they being accounted for? And probably the biggest one, why do most of them seem to be, there's enough evidence, certainly that I've seen, why do most of them seem to be young men in the 20s and 30s? I don't see many evidence
Fighting age
young men, yeah. Now, these are important questions that governments need to answer. Of course, they're being ignored. Now, the protest last Friday started off very, very peaceful protest. Local community, local families concerned. There was a trigger that had happened, I think it was earlier that day, or it might have been a couple of days before, of a schoolgirl being approached by a migrant from the hotel very, very inappropriately. You've probably seen it. It went viral on Twitter. Yeah. Now, there's a lot of context and a lot of precedent as well, going back to the sickening events that took place in Rochdale and Rotherham in the late 2000s. Yeah. Some more precedent. People they're on the bones of their arses now, Paul. Financially and economically, they've had, obviously, a lot of them have woken up to the terrible evil deception of the last few years. There's threats from all around. There's attacks from all around, and now all of a sudden they've got these serious concerns about, well, we just want to know what's going on here. We want some answers. Yeah. So a peaceful protest that was. Yeah. That did result in some violence towards the end. The police van was set on fire. Now, the mainstream media, instantly jumped to conclusions. That's the far right. The Guardian even said hundreds of far right protesters. I wasn't there. I saw the videos. They were just normal Scousers. They were just normal Scousers concerned.
Women with buggies.
Yeah. Exactly, concern about protecting the communities and protecting their children. And the interesting thing is, and I did a video from a YouTube channel about this, Paul, and I titled it Liverpool, the hotbed of extremism. Now, the seat where the hotel, the constituency is held by Labour, and that seat is Labour's third safest seat in the entire country. Yeah. So let's use a little bit of logic here. Are we really saying that all of a sudden, the people in Kirby have suddenly lurched to the far right, and have become these brown shirt fascists, who are
just woke up overnight.
Yeah. I mean, are we really saying that? If anything, it's I know the city of Liverpool. If anything, the politics generally can be and is to a large extent very far left, but it doesn't matter about politics, and that's the good thing about this is that people aren't talking politically here. Ones who've got concerns, they're talking more socially about the effect on their communities, and they want explanations.
We're far right because we want law and order. Imagine that.
Yeah,
we're far right because we want law and order, and we don't like the idea that there's undocumented men roaming our land, roaming our countries. Actually, in fact, when we got off the plane coming back from Malaga, I never saw it before in my life, Dave. Literally, as we were walking down the steps of the plane, there was the guards were literally on the tarmac asking for people's passports. Now, they saw us with the children, and they knew we were Irish. Didn't say anything to us, but they stopped a lot of people who may have looked foreign, if you want to say foreign. And I thought that was fascinating. It's a very real thing. 5,000 people got into Ireland last year. They got rid of their passports as they were getting off planes, and they were throwing them down the toilet or putting them in bins as they were approaching security in the airport. It's real, and I don't like the idea that there is people coming into this country and we don't know who they are. And why would you get rid of your passport if you enter a country? So it's dangerous. It's dangerous. And as you said, all we want is to protect our neighbourhoods. We want to protect Mullingar. We want to protect Kirby. We want to protect the inner city Dublin. It's very frustrating, and they can only go so far with these isms and labels. It'll be interesting to see how Labour get on in that community. But I was thinking as well, Dave, just one last thing about the migrant situation. It's a serious situation, but, and it's a big but, and I know we're going to talk about it in the next day or two regarding excess deaths. Don't get distracted. Don't get too fixed in the migrant situation.
Yeah.
They want us, don't fall into the trap, because they want a culture war.
Ourselves.
Exactly. They want a culture war. They want a class war. Keep your eye on the ball of the real hidden agendas. Hidden agendas like Agenda 2040, the Green Agenda, Digital ID surveillance, Bilderberg, Davos plans,
online
covering up excess deaths, the Great Reset. Now, they could be all distractions as well, but don't get too fixed on the migrant thing as well. It's a big issue, but there's other big issues as well. They want us looking that way. They want us infighting. They want left against right, progressives against, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's so it's kind of keeping your eye on the ball. And also remember who your real enemy is. Your real enemy is not the migrants. Your real enemy is, in Ireland, we've got 130 politicians in Dáil Éireann. They're your real enemy. People like Simon Coveney, who's a Bilderberger. The EU is our enemy. NGOs are our enemy. The media are our enemy. You know, these bourgeois latte drinking types. The middle class civil servants are our enemy. You know, so we shouldn't forget that. We should keep focused as well.
I totally agree with that, Paul. I have concerns regarding the obviously the migrant situation, because what's going on the south coast of England is not normal. However,
no, it's not.
You look at it through their perspective. You know, chance of a better life, you know, everything paid for, you're going to jump at it, aren't you? So you're right. The protests for me, I think, reflect where my concerns are, which are, well, where's the local input into these decisions? Where's the democracy? Where is the why are citizens not stakeholders when it comes to making these decisions? Why are these decisions being made? Why aren't our very valid questions not being answered? Is there an agenda behind what's going on? So I think the concerns are definitely directed less towards, because I totally agree with you, less towards the migrants themselves and more towards the reasons behind why they are here.
Exactly.
And
the migrants are mere pawns in this, as you're saying, that there's people behind the scenes. It's a new slave movement, isn't it? It's a new form of slavery, you know, in many ways. And as you say, there's people behind the scene, maybe deals with local councils. I'm even seeing in Mullingar, the barracks in Mullingar, the army barracks in Mullingar. Someone locally has signed that off. Some politician has signed that off. But one day it will come out, and as you say, the anger of people it'll be unstoppable. You know, I can feel it.
That's what worries me.
It is a worry.
I mean, we've only got 4 minutes left. You talked about the middle class. Kind of like the middle, the kind of like the establishment media class talking heads, you know, the treacherous saboteurs, and kind of like their middle class hangers on. What they don't seem to understand is that they can't all have a seat at the top table, Paul.
No,
you know, there's nothing in it for them when it all comes down to it. You know, there's nothing in it for them other than serious recriminations. And I think if I was them, I wouldn't be sleeping well. I really wouldn't be sleeping right at the moment. And that also extends as well. We'll probably talk about this when we talk about the excess debts. We're doing one tomorrow, aren't we? I extend that as well, Paul, to the public sector employees, certainly in my country, doctors, nurses, the police, and the
go along to get along.
Yeah, and not only we'll talk more tomorrow, but not only have they, you know, complied or not spoken up, but many of them have actively participated in the very thing that's led to the excess debts, and a lot of them are the same people as well who will just, you know, dutifully hold up the refugees welcome sign. They'll put the Ukraine flag in the bio on Twitter. You know, Black Lives Matter. You know. Climate change is real, and shutting down debate every 5 minutes. And these people very, very, very soon are going to have some serious questions to answer, Paul, and are going to face a quite severe backlash. I do believe that. I'm not advocating anything. I'm just saying it's a distinct possibility, but we'll talk more about that tomorrow.
Well, it's a dangerous game to play, isn't it? To have to advocate for open borders, because the laws of probability is, as we said, you're going to get some bad eggs come into your country, some spoofers, some chancellors, but you're going to get some rapists, you're going to get murderers, you're going to get pedophiles. And the laws of probability is something's got to give. Something will eventually happen. I'm thinking in Ireland, and it already has happened. We had our first Islamic attack in Sligo a year ago. His name is Plani. His name should be known all over the country. No one knows about that case. It was brushed over. And the law's probability is these people who advocate and to be there on Saturday with their Ireland for All march, they will have blood on their hands.
Yeah.
And it might come close to home when a migrant does attack or rapes, just going back, I know we're finishing up there. It just shows, you talk about the legacy media. RTE, our state channel, News Today, they had a news section which was, we need to manage our DEER situation in the country. And I was like, our DEER situation, DEER. And I was thinking, and there was like a 5-10 minute section in the main news, manage not our migrant situation, our DEER situation.
Right, so again, it sums it up, doesn't it?
You couldn't make it up, could you?
Yeah, you couldn't make it up. You couldn't make it up. And, there's nothing wrong. We've got one minute left. There's nothing wrong with citizens voicing their concerns. And what's refreshing now is I think that there's more social proof. More and more people are seeing more and more social proof, as in more and more people who think like them, thereby making it easier for them to speak, to speak out. I mean, people should have spoken out anyway. If you believe in something, speak your truth. But more social proof, more and more social validation, and a bit more unity starting to build. And I think it's not along political lines, which is great. And that old paradigm of left and right is melting away now, I think.
Exactly. It's grassroots. And we need to look, as I said at the start, Sweden is the example. Look at Sweden. Who would ever thought that Sweden, the lefties didn't do great in the last election. They actually lost loads of votes, all on one issue, which was immigration. And we all know how their crime rate has went up. No-go areas in Sweden. Who would have thought of that?
Paul, absolutely bang on. We're about to finish, but thanks again for the chat. The time's about to go. That was brilliant. I'll speak to you soon.
Faceless Paul. And it was okay. So there you go. Proven theory.
Cheers, Paul. Speak to you tomorrow. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. Bye bye.
God bless. Bye.